candidates out there that you are not seeing tonight, please send them to me. I would love to meet them all and get them support from our party. So, and you can just email apcdems@gmail.com and it will get to me. So tonight we have Chris Idzik and Tim Kubik presenting to us, and then we're going to go into 2 separate breakout rooms where you will select the candidate that you the district that you live in. So we'll have 2 breakout rooms for you to pay attention to. Lots to learn tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to the first presenter. Is it Chris or
Terry?
Or is it Terry Martinez goes first?
Yep, you're going to introduce him. Give us a second.
Okay. Brooklyn, you want to run this?
Yeah, I can go over the tech stuff. Hi, my name's Brooklyn. I'm just going to run through a few tech things so that you know how to navigate the webinar tonight. So you'll see there's a chat bubble. If you want to chat, you can go ahead and use that. Make sure to stay muted just so we don't have any background noise going on, and go ahead and leave your video off as well. And then we will be putting you into breakout rooms later tonight. And that, as you can see where the pink arrow is the little 4 squares. And you'll use that to get into the breakout room, as well as if you need help in that breakout room, you can click that to request assistance. Like it says on the screen, feel free to use the chat if you have any questions or you need help. And then in order to leave, if you want to leave anytime throughout the night, that red button that says leave is how you do that.
Well, I guess that's my introduction. My name is Terry Martinez. Many of you have known me over the years in the Democratic Party and doing different crazy things. But my job tonight is to, one, moderate, but the discussion with specific candidates. And I just wanted to share just real quickly this cartoon that's a friend of mine sent me just a couple of days ago. If I was going to do a moneymaker many times related to the school board, I would stand outside and do sell torches and pitchforks, because it didn't really matter what kinds of decisions or what kinds of things were going on. It was going to be, somebody was going to be upset by it. And this is only the most recent example of that. And these are just a couple of the current issues that we have to overcome in education to get down to the brass tacks of it. After being in education for 31 years and knowing all of that we educators do, it's definitely distracting. And along the way, we definitely need to figure out ways to get good candidates to represent the community on school boards. And I'm really excited to hear from the candidates tonight. But first, to set the tone, we have a couple of experts that are going to do some presentations for us. The first is going to be Chris Idzik, and he is the Uniserv director of the Pikes Peak Education Association, and they represent everybody in the Pikes Peak region except for D11, which is a fairly broad spectrum of educators in the area. And he's going to share a few thoughts about what we have to overcome in education. So Chris, why don't you hit it?
Thank you very much, Terry, and good evening, everyone. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be asked to share some of, I would say, our thoughts, because I work in conjunction with 22 different locals across the Pikes Peak area. Again, we are the donut, the whole is D11. And I think one of the key issues that I am struck by being in Colorado for the last 3 years is the low level of funding for the public schools of Colorado. As my bio said, I was a teacher for close to 15 years and taught in a very wealthy state, Massachusetts, but also taught in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and perhaps one of the poorest states of the Union. And it's still quite a bit of cognitive dissonance for me to be in one of the most wealthy states, fastest growing state in the union, and yet have these, what I would call deplorable stats that still have not risen from the floor. As you can see there in 2015, I did write to the National Center for Educational Statistics to get an update. It has bumped up a little bit, but by no means where we think, at least I think, a state like this should be. And unfortunately, it's become more and more of a partisan issue, hasn't it? Educational funding. And I think one thing that's kind of striking to consider is there are only a handful of states, Washington, Wyoming, that have actually reached the level of funding pre-2009 of the economic downfall. And Colorado has not reached that plateau. And I do think that it's a statewide problem, but we also know with some of the things that are coming up, that it's also a local issue. One of the tough issues for us are the starting salaries in the area. Some of the average out on the plains are in the low 30s. Ellicott's at like 33, Peyton's 35, Kiowa's 30, and Pueblo 35, Widefield 38, and even D11 is only at 41,000. We have teachers sleeping in cars out in ski country. And I think part of it is, where are we going to be with this incredible boom around us? I just was out in Ellicott and I passed a housing development that's going to be putting in 300 houses. And with the starting salary out there of 33,000, I think it's going to be really difficult for them to find. And again, it's a competitive issue. As young people come out of college and think about a career in education, they think about where they can raise a family, buy a house. And I think this graph really shows just how far down this state is. And then again, it's a certain kind of cognitive dissonance. And I'd share kind of an analogy. Senator Story just sent out her newsletter, and she mentioned that Denver had some of the worst air in the world this summer. And in average, Denver has some of the worst air in the whole country. But we don't really talk about it or think about it. And I think a lot of people think it's pretty good here in Colorado as far as funding goes. And we beg to differ. It's a fundamental issue. And we think school board candidates need to both lobby their legislators, but also talk to the community about how can this be sustained. Unfortunately, what we're seeing recently, if I can go to the next slide, is we're trying to claw back some of the excess tax money. And this came out of the Independent just a little while ago. And perhaps other people saw it, but what was striking to me was in this effort to claw back, nothing in there mentions education. It's the roads, it's parklands, it's everything we support. But again, why isn't education the top priority? Now, it's difficult to get a stat. I have this great artifact that I keep in my office. I was a history teacher, and this was done a couple of years ago. It looks backwards on my screen, but anyway, it says 49th in educational funding, Colorado. And I think, why would we continue? Doesn't everybody in this room want the best schools for their children? And there is a direct corollary between funding and educational success for our children. Again, I only have to look at the high school graduation rate, college graduation rate, and the income that's attainable by that in states like Massachusetts, New Jersey, where there is a floor that is 50, 60,000 for a starting teacher. I think it's a real crisis. And I also will say this year has been particularly hard because a lot of teachers are like, it's just not worth it. And even on fundamental small things, for instance, Fountain Fort Carson has the highest sub pay in my area at $150 a day. I just talked with my president today and she said there are no subs at all. So already 3 weeks into school, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, depending on what district, teachers are already completely burnt out. And it's a crisis. And I'm really worried where we're going to be at the end of this year. And as far as the school board candidate, talk to your union reps. Although I'm a registered Democrat, I am nonpartisan in my daily work. And we really need to address the funding issue. There's no way around it. And I encourage you to contact us here at Pikes Peak if you're in the El Paso area, but wherever you may be, do consult with the union in your area because we have the kind of bird's eye view. We can give you some of what the teachers are saying day to day. And I really encourage you to contact the union rep in your area. And if you don't get elected, get on the deck, go visit a school. I can't tell you how many of our teachers are like, where are board members? They used to come, they're never here. Go visit. And I think part of that will help to uplift the teachers and support staff. I really want to mention, if teacher salaries are low, support staff is even lower. We have, people getting paid $13 an hour when they can go work down the road in an Arby's or an Amazon and make $5, $10 more. But I encourage you to get involved. I think it's a real dire situation. And I think progressive school board candidates can make all the difference. Thank you.
Wow, thanks. I'm not sure thanks is the correct answer to what you just shared with us, Chris, but it is a good dose of reality. And I definitely, I know that there was a comment in there from our next presenter, and that's from Dr. Tim Kubik. And he put in there that over the years, since downturn, since Tabor, since Gallagher, the state has deferred over $10 billion in funding to education. It's like we've just chopped that off and we've never recovered it. So I appreciate highlighting that for us as well. So that brings us to our next presenter. And this gentleman has a wide variety of experience, including teaching and consulting, which is a fancy way of being a teacher for teachers. And he is currently the chair of the Colorado Democratic Education Initiative and works with the Colorado Democrats to get Democratic leaders connected with the talent and the treasure that for a sustainable education. And we just have looking forward to a series of slides on him. He gets to bring up all kinds of other issues that as board members, you're going to have to face and be able to answer, but he also gives you some real good talking points. So board candidates, make sure that you're paying attention. Go ahead, Tim.
All right, thank you, Terry. And I want to thank the El Paso County Dems for inviting me to do this talk. This year is a critical year. I'll say why in a moment, but you may not know much about the Colorado Democratic Education Initiative. The first thing I want to make clear for those of you who don't know is that we are an initiative of the Colorado Democratic Party. So we work primarily to support Democrats, whether they are candidates for state school board, CU Regent, or local school board. We do know there are some people in some parts of our state who can't register as Democrats because it's actually a liability for them in their parts of the state. And I actually live in one of those parts. But by the party bylaws, we can only support people who are registered as Democrats. So what I want to talk about today is the importance of, as Democrats, supporting all the candidates that you think will be best for your area schools and your kids. We've been around for 20 years. We have about 90 dues paying members now, an email list of about 400 people. And we continue to grow as people are beginning to realize that education is now a major issue in preserving our democracy. So pop on to the next slide. Just a word about our principles. We were founded in 2001 in part as a response to the emergence of private for-profit charter schools. And our concern was that education should be for all. It should be an equal opportunity, not something that only some people can get access to. And then also there should be a fair accountability system. And that was the last big fight we had as Democrats about 10 years ago around State Bill 191 or teacher accountability, which we fought pretty hard against because it put so much weight on test scores and principal evaluations rather than the quality of the teacher's work in the classroom. So now we're facing a much bigger fight if we pop onto the next slide. As Democrats, we see a lot of threats to democracy right now. And the big picture on the left, I think you all know about, but it was a momentary threat. And thankfully, many of the people who were involved in that have been arrested and are being sentenced to jail terms for their role in that insurrection. But I'm guessing not many of you have heard of something called the Agility Alliance. Now, the Agility Alliance is made up of some really great companies and some great people who are trying to help education. And I've even done some work with some of these entities. but there might be one name that you notice in the slides there. Someone's moving the cursor right to it. If you see the name Coke there in the middle, then you'll notice that the Agility Alliance is not just involving the Koch Foundation, but was really set up by the Koch Foundation with the effort to corporatize America's public schools, so that instead of them being incubators for democracy and democratic principles, they would be incubators for employability skills. Again, not a bad idea in principle, except that the Koch brothers have been famous for saying they actually believe that America's public schools should all be closed because they teach the wrong things. And so with that, we're also facing another major threat this year. And I got that Koch circled in red there, so you don't miss it. Go on to the next slide. You may have heard of the 1619 Project, which is addressing issues of American slavery in American history. And the Trump administration put together this thing called the 1776 Project as a perceived antidote to it. And you guessed it, it's getting tons of funding from the Koch brothers in order to move forward a patriotic, xenophobic American history that sort of covers over all of the negative things that happen so that people will believe that we are in fact an exceptional country that has never had any problems and has always been the answer to all the problems in the world. That Koch money plus the 1776 PAC means that we are facing the most aggressive attack on public schools nationwide and their school boards that we've seen in over 10 years. And I can't overstate this. This election cycle in 2021, many of the local candidates who are on board here are trying to raise money $5, $25, $50 at a time. They're facing a PAC that is able to get their candidates tens of thousands of dollars without even blinking. And that's why it's really important that you not only find the candidates, but you also figure out the ways to support them as best as possible. And to do that, next slide, I'd like to talk about 3 issues that you're going to hear no matter what school board forum that you go to, and 2 propositions that are likely to pop up as well, that if we can't control the narrative on these, we'll have a problem. If you're a school board candidate who's a Democrat on this call, you've seen some of these talking points already. But it's really important that those of us who are helping the campaigns also know the general statements on a question like COVID, questions school board members are likely to face, and you're ready to stand up in a forum, a house party, whatever, and share some of those talking points as well to back up your candidates who are running to do the best things they can for our schools. A big part of the COVID story is student mental health and safety. Right? We're concerned that young students in particular, they may be experiencing learning loss, which I'll talk about in a moment, but mostly, go back one slide, please. Mostly they're really just scared by all of this, right? It's a very uncomfortable situation. And it's really important to note that in Colorado, when someone asks you about whether students should be wearing masks or not, it really is a school board level decision. As a candidate, you have to have a quick answer to that can put that one to rest. Right? You have control of what your school board does. And at a time when higher level officials are somewhat reluctant to call for state mandates again, that responsibility is going to fall on you. You need to make sure that any room that you go to has people in that room who are equipped to echo your talking points. Whether it's a town hall meeting or a house party, you need to say, yep, it's up to the school district. They get to make the call. The school board gets to make the call, but that they should do it, and this is very interesting, in cooperation with their local health authorities, right? Candidates in the Thompson School District, where I live in the Loveland, Colorado area, actually got attacked because they talked to the county commissioners about whether the county commissioners might actually pass a mask mandate for schools. That's exactly what you should be doing. Doesn't matter what party they're from. You should say, what is the health data saying? What is your county health department saying is the right answer, so that you can make a scientifically based decision. And that's what your candidates need you to be echoing out there also. If the virus rate is high enough that there are no more hospital beds in your county, then it probably makes sense that you would have a mask mandate for schools so that kids don't end up waiting in hallways in hospitals trying to get treatment. Next slide, please. Related to COVID is a lot of conversation about something called learning loss. And the general statement that we offer on that, and to keep in mind, is that yes, students may not have learned all the algebra they were supposed to last year or all the grammar they were supposed to. But they also learned a lot of other things about new technologies, about Colorado essential skills like collaboration, cooperation. They gained a lot. And when we only focus on the loss that's documented on test scores for mandated curriculum, then we're missing a lot of things here. And I think it's really important when somebody asks about learning loss, that anybody in the audience come back and say, well, what about the kids who really learned to learn on their own independently because teachers couldn't be with them every minute of the day? What about the kids who actually did some self-study on the side and learned some things? What about all the new technologies kids learned how to use so they could stay connected to their teachers and their classmates? Those are also things to talk about because learning loss only exists on the standardized tests. And the question of whether a student is behind this year or not is really only a question of whether they're where they're supposed to be on the tests. And one of the things we're really proud of is last spring, we pushed back very hard, even against the governor's office, about wanting to go with a full bank of testing last spring because we knew it was going to hurt students and teachers. They know they didn't know everything they were supposed to know for the tests. So why put them through the humiliation of taking a test that they couldn't possibly pass because they hadn't been taught the material in the first place. So I think rather than focusing on the deadlines and score declines that are tied to the tests, we want to be focusing on what kids did learn last year and how do we build up from that point. And that's a really important counter to anybody who's asking you about learning loss and, well, don't we need, to extend school hours or have kids in school on Saturday or all that kind of stuff, because we can't possibly remediate what children were never taught. We're going to have to figure out a way to sort of bring it back gradually. If you're interested in that question, you're welcome to contact me. I'll put my email in later so that you can get to me. Next slide, please. Before masks and COVID were a really big issue, the 1776 PAC thought they were going to make a lot of hay with this concept called critical race theory. And I'm sure some of you have heard it battered around. I want to say three things about it. The name critical race theory really works for the Republicans. One, because it's critical and Republicans hate anything that's critical. Two, because it's about race and Republicans don't think there's a problem with race. And three, because it's a theory. And so they don't think we should be teaching anything that's just a theory. If you're a science teacher, you heard similar debates about evolution in the past. They really thought they had this, and it may come back again as COVID may wane during the course of the election. So you're likely to get questions about critical race theory or gender and identity curriculum. And I think there's a couple of points to note that all of us need to echo in on. Again, Colorado is a local control state. The state of Colorado does not mandate any kind of curriculum like critical race theory. We mandate inclusion, that the students who are in our classrooms should see examples of themselves in their curriculum, but there's no curriculum that we have to do. The other thing I think is really important to note is that we know for a fact, based on the testing data that everyone thinks is so important, that students of color and otherwise underrepresented minorities, such as LGBTQ folks and other things, they do better on standardized tests when they see themselves in the curriculum. If you have a word problem that involves two girlfriends who are deciding to figure out what they should eat for pizza and what they want to put on their pizza, the lesbian girls in your classroom are going to like that problem and try to figure it out, as opposed to if it never mentions LGBTQ students, Latina students, Black students, et cetera. And we know that. And ultimately, American schools were founded to be an incubator for democratic exchange so that kids could grow up and be part of our society. And that's point number 2 up there. So your teachers, as I see in the comments, may get pounded on critical race theory. It's still there. And I think they need people in the audience who can help them throw back, your candidates in particular, who can help throw back some of these talking points about why critical race theory is not to be feared. One last point about that, as critical race theory is something entirely different from culturally responsive teaching. If you hear CRT used, the best thing you can do as a talking point is come back and say, did you mean critical race theory or culturally responsive teaching? The odds are pretty good you're going to shut up whoever's asking the question immediately because they won't know the difference between the two. But there really is a big difference because culturally responsive teaching is just making sure that students see examples of themselves in the curriculum. It doesn't require us to dig around determining who's guilty for the bad things that happened in American history or whatnot. And it's very, very heavily research-based in brain-based research and standardized testing results. That culturally responsive teaching helps address the opportunity gap that our minority students face. So those are the three issues. There are also two big ballot propositions on the ballot that it's really important that candidates and voters understand. So let's go to the next slide. The first one is Proposition 120, and this is going to be a tough one because we know if there's one thing all Coloradans like, it's a tax cut. And Proposition 120 proposes a reduction in the residential property tax assessment rate by almost more than half a percentage point. The polls show that people love this idea, but they have no idea what the impacts are. So if somebody asks about the question like, do you support Proposition 120? Do you support a tax cut in a residential property? It's important to come back with questions like, well, where are we going to find that $1 billion this tax cut will take out of the state budget? Roughly 260 million of it, which will have to come from education. Because as we know, based on Chris's remarks, we always cut education, because the dirty little secret about Colorado is that we have one of the most educated workforces in the country. So we don't really need to fund education because people want to move here with an education and enjoy our Colorado way of life. The other thing to note based on comparison of different tax codes is Colorado has the third lowest property tax rate in the nation. Only Hawaii and Alabama are lower. And so there's really no need. It's not like we're paying exorbitant taxes to support our public schools when we have that residential property assessment. So Proposition 120 is something that you've just got to get the word out there and say, yes, a tax cut might be nice for us as individuals, but the net impact on our schools of $260 million in lost funding is going to prevent that roof from getting repaired, is going to keep teacher salaries really low, et cetera. Next slide. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Proposition 119, otherwise known as LEAP. Some of you may have heard about this, some of you may have not, but it's being sold as a proposition to take money from the marijuana tax hikes that are proposed as part of it and use those to fund after school or fifth-day schooling programs for kids who don't have the funds to join those activities. So if you live in a district that has only 4 school days, what are kids doing on the 5th days? If you're below poverty level, you probably can't afford to put them in any kind of enrichment or learning activities, nor can you afford to put them in after school activities. And on the surface, it sounds kind of great. In fact, it polls about 60-40 just when people look at the measure. But the reality is a little bit scarier. The reality is that a lot of the money that funds this proposition comes from the state land trust, which was set up in the state's Enabling Act for public schools. We're talking about taking $20 million a year from the Enabling Act that would go to schools and transferring them to a nonprofit organization that would basically do the work of schools outside of schools. And that would be run by a lot of some of the Agility Alliance companies that I showed you earlier, a lot of large nonprofit entities here in Colorado. The really scary thing about this is the budget for administration of this program is twice the size of the budget for the Colorado Department of Education. And that includes roughly $3 million for executive salaries. Out of that $20 million that's being borrowed. So this is really, and I'm just going to call it as I see it, this is really a bailout program for failed educational reforms that have not demonstrated results in 20 years. And it sounds good because it's that thing, marijuana money for schools, that everybody likes when they think about marijuana taxes. But it really is robbing our public schools to pay nonprofit works to do work that it would just be better if we raised teacher salaries and paid them to do the work anyway. So we're really happy that the Resolutions Committee of the Democratic Party voted on Sunday to oppose Proposition 119. If you're a Central Committee member, you'll get that vote in the mail by the end of the week, a chance to vote against it with us. And if we get the vote of the Central Committee, then we can work through Democratic Party offices all over the state to try to prevent this measure from passing and keeping that $20 million a year in the school fund rather than transferring it to nonprofits. Those are two issues that not a lot of people are going to be talking about. I think it's really important for you as a school board candidate to ask if people are aware of it, and if they're not, to get the message out, because the net result of those two propositions is tens of millions of dollars a year being lost for our public schools, which just makes the deferred funding that the state owes deeper and deeper and deeper. So finally, go on to the next slide. If you want to celebrate on election night, and these are two of my good friends in Thompson, the night we finally passed a mill and bond after, I don't know, like 12 years of trying, go to the next slide. Having the right candidate is enough. I see some of the candidates on the screen. I see you smiling, but you're not going to be smiling long if you're doing this all by yourself. It's really important that everyone in El Paso County supports the progressive candidates who are running for school board with both time, that's the clock on the left-hand side, and dime, some financial contributions. Your volunteer time and dime helps build candidate support. It makes them feel less alone. It makes them feel like they've got a team, and it builds candidate name recognition. With money, $15 an hour can get 50 or 60 phone calls out to voters. Can get $15 can get about 35 flyers out. $100 can probably buy a candidate access to the Democratic Party's van system so that you have real data about voters in the district. $5 buys a yard sign. On the other side of things, in terms of volunteer time, every campaign needs a lot of people to help out, just staff things and do voter contact. A lot of campaigns have volunteers write postcards. And my favorite tactic that I just want to share is called donuts. And no, it doesn't mean that you buy donuts for the candidates, because they're all going to be eating enough junk food on the campaign trail. It means that if a candidate is going to go out to knock doors, they should have a circle of volunteers in the neighborhood around them that are also knocking doors, that all have the candidate's cell phone number, so that if they meet somebody who really wants to talk to the candidate, they can say, oh yeah, she's right over the next block, let me call her and she can come over to your house. Because ultimately, school board elections are won when people meet the candidates. They're probably not going to be convinced by a volunteer talking to you. So if you can get them to meet the candidate, that's what really matters. Last slide, I think. So that's who we are as a Colorado Democratic Initiative. We are available to help candidates if you have questions, as long as you're a Dem. And we will be doing some targeted phone banking in October into districts that we think need a little bit of extra help. We'll let you know if you're a candidate that we will be targeting. We're just working on that targeting list right now. We're going to spend our October program meeting. Instead of talking, we're just going to spend it calling people on the phone to targeted districts. And if you'd like to help us out in those efforts, you can become a member of the initiative by making a $10 donation to either the link you see below, or I think I saw Chris take a picture of the QR code up there. And if you have that QR code in your camera, it'll take you right to our Act Blue page, and you can make a $10 donation that will help us do some of that work. I want to thank personally all of the candidates who are running. I've talked to some of you and I met others at our school board town hall. And I want to say, I know what you're about to go through. And I really, really hope the people who are on this call will rally to your yard signs and help you out, because you'll win if they do. Thank you very much, El Paso Dems, for the time.
Hang on. Thank you, Tim. And I just did the same, just joined. So now you can have 92 members after Chris did it too. And again, as a candidate in previous election cycles, volunteers, people willing to call. I know I've had different support along the way. There's lots of things that we can do to support. But I tell you, an easy way is, and every one of these candidates will have a way to donate. And if you don't do anything, I know Liz is going to do the ask a little bit later, but if you don't do anything tonight, give to one of these candidates or more. So.
Hey, Terry, we are going to need to take a quick pause. Chandra's having some tech issues, and so we're going to pause, and then she's going to restart her Zoom so that we can go into the breakout rooms.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You can, yeah, or you can take something they've already done.
Sorry about that. Please go ahead, Terry.
No, I think at this point, I think what we were going to do is go ahead and divide up, but do you want me to introduce all the candidates that are here just
Yeah.
real quickly for the whole group? And again, pick somebody that is in your district, or maybe if you just want to, somebody, you've seen their face or whatever. Again, they need your support. So I'm going to go through, and we have Tiana Clark, and she is a candidate in District 20. She has kids. She actually has been active in different schools in District 20. And again, District 20 is a different space. I know Chris would probably be able to say that, but there's a lot of local control, and a school board in D20 has a lot of influence, and you don't hear about it a lot, but that it serves a significant number of students in our community. So Tiana, I'm sure we'll have a link for you as well, and we'll be able to hear from you in the breakout room. Next slide. Brian Coram, and he is new. I didn't get a chance to meet him yet, but again, he's a candidate for D20. And so I'm looking at his bio real quickly. He wants every D20 student to have an exceptional education. And again, anybody willing to step up and put their name out there is good. And he's got his website there as well. Thank you. Julie Ott is a D11 candidate, and she is an incumbent and deserves more than anybody that I know right now to get reelected as well. She served on many different levels, and I'm just going to throw a plug in there. She's knocked doors for me as well. Chris Wallace is a little bit new to the game, but is an incumbent. And I appreciate the fact that he has a nonprofit experience with Care and Share, and has gotten lots of people to call me and say he's one that we want to support as well. His website is there. And Jen Williamson, I got a friend request a couple of months ago, and we have a lot of mutual friends. And this is the person that's a parent, been very active, but also serves the youth at Grace in St. Stephen's Episcopal Church. Again, thinking outside of ourselves a little bit and serving the community. This is just another way for her to do that. And again, hers is an interesting connection. Shirley Martinez is somebody I've crossed paths with many, many times through the Latino luncheon and the Cinco de Mayo. She's going to be a great candidate, recently retired from CSU and is a veteran. So looking forward to hearing more about Shirley. Dolly is a candidate from Fountain Fort Carson, and Liz had a lot of good things to say about Dolly, which carries lots of weight for me as well. And she wants in Fountain Fort Carson for them to use the funding that they get.
Widefield.
Oh, Widefield.
Hey, Terry,
sorry.
she's Widefield School District 3.
Okay, District 3. Yeah, okay. I didn't see that in the bio there. You're right.
Okay.
It's close to Fountain though, right?
Thanks. Yes,
Thanks.
but different.
District 3, yes. And JJ is going to be in Harrison District 2 candidate. We worked in D11 for a ridiculously long time, was lots of different roles, and is currently the chair of the LETAC, which I serve on as well with her, and has been a community leader for a number of years. And I'm so glad she is throwing her hat in the ring as well as a candidate for school board and D2. All right, so now I think Brooklyn, you get to share the tech details.
Yes, so we will go into breakout rooms. You'll see down at the bottom the 4 little squares. You can select the breakout room there. Just a reminder that District 11 will be staying in the main room, so you do not need to go into a breakout room if you are interested in hearing from the D11 candidates. Once you get into the breakout room, feel free to say hi to, the people that are in there. You can unmute, you can share your video. Just make sure you're muted while the presenters are speaking so that there's not background noise going on. Once you're in the breakout room, if you have any questions or any issues, you can click that breakout room button at the bottom to ask for help, and one of us will come in to help you from there. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to put that in the chat.
The rooms have been opened. If you would like to go to District 2, 3, 8, or 20, please go to the breakout room. And if you would like to stay here and listen to D11, then feel free to stay here. If you're a candidate for obviously the other districts, please go in the breakout room where they want to talk to you. Janice, I'll put you in there. Give me a second. Okay, and Ultra, are you going in there to record so that we can start this program on this side?
I am now, but you're going to lose your background. Just a warning.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right, and we can have you start moderating, Terry, if you want to have them introduce themselves and give a stump speech, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. And thank you, those of you who decided to join here. I appreciate it. We're going to give each of the candidates a few minutes just to share a little bit about themselves. And then after we get through all of the candidates, we will open it up for some questions. I'll have some questions as well, just in case your ability to grill them is a little slow. So we're going to go ahead and start with Chris. Chris, you get to start
muted.
again.
How's my audio?
Wonderful, thank you.
Outstanding. Good evening, y'all. Delivering high achievement by meeting the unique needs of each student. My name is Chris Wallace, and this is why I'm running for District 11 School Board. I'm a Colorado native and a proud father to a D11 student. I've been honored to serve on the board for the past year after being appointed in November of 2020. Prior to my service on the board, I was active on my daughter's Parent-Teacher Association and School Accountability Committee. I've spent the majority of my career leading teams in the fast-paced and results-oriented world of transportation and warehouse logistics. I currently serve as Logistics Director for Care and Share Food Bank, where we believe that no one should go hungry. In the past fiscal year, we distributed 25 million pounds of food to our neighbors in need across 31 counties in Southern Colorado. We were able to do this because of and in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I can appreciate to some extent the significant operational challenges created for D11 by the pandemic. Years prior to the pandemic, D11 began to plan for a future where we would be the premier district in the region. Even while navigating the challenges of the past 18 months, D11 continues to look towards and plan for this future in collaboration with our community. D11 recognized that too often our students were being left behind in our educational system. D11 saw that a one-size-fits-all approach was not ideal when so few of our students, for one reason or another, could not fit the definition of average. In truth, there are no average students in D11. Trying to shove them into this rigid mold has never been ideal. D11 has recognized this truth and has made the promise that we will better deliver high achievement for our students by meeting their unique needs, creating environments that are welcoming, personalized, and ambitious is our path to success. I am running for District 11 School Board to ensure that D11 fulfills this promise with fidelity, transparency, and accountability. Thank you, and I hope you'll vote for me November 2nd for D11 School Board.
Well done, Chris. Next, we're going to go with Jen Williamson.
Hi, I'm Jen. My dog was being quiet this entire time until now, so sorry about the crunching back there, our pandemic puppy. So I was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio area, and if you know anything about Youngstown, it's not an area that makes the list of top places where people want to live. It's an economically depressed area, and yet I had a fantastic public education because of wonderful teachers that I had that set me up for success. And I went on and received a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in divinity from Drew Theological School, and then was called to serve back in the Youngstown area as a pastor. I'm an ordained United Methodist pastor. I've been a pastor for 15 years and trained as a hospital chaplain as well, and have pastored churches in different diverse settings with congregations who do not all see eye to eye. So I am used to kind of the tumultuous trying to hold people together that have really different views. When we moved here, because my husband took the position as rector of Grace and St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, and we got involved at Audubon, where our kids go to school. We have a 2nd and 4th grader, and Audubon's a D11 school. And I was able to get involved there. And Audubon really gives me hope for what D11 can be. It is a diverse school. My kids feel respected and valued. Their needs are met. I, as a parent, had opportunities to get involved. I was the PTA president for 2 years, and this is my 2nd year as the SAC chair, and felt that my opinion mattered and was respected. And in those positions, I've been able to start community partnership programs, build relationships with the homeowners associations in the area, and really try to connect our school to the area that we are in. I'm also a youth pastor, and the teens that I serve go to all the different schools in D11. And so I really know what this past year has been like for them. And as a parent of elementary students trying to do online school, I know what it's been like. And for that reason, one of the things that I really value is holistic education, and a lot of the programs like the Random Acts of Kindness program that D11 is unveiling, we got to see firsthand, as Audubon was one of the first schools for it. And I just really think that right now is such an important time for us to come together. We have this collective trauma that our young people have been through. And one of the ways to address that is by having excellent instruction and also addressing those social emotional learning needs that I see firsthand with the kids that I pastor to. Also, I really see a need for collaboration. As I was deciding to run, I spent a lot of time meeting with teachers and principals and students. And over again, I heard, we want our voice to be heard. We want to feel like things are done with us, not to us. And I feel like collaboration with parents, you know, my experience in PTA, I've seen how beneficial that can be to a school. Collaboration between central administration and teachers, collaboration with the community. And I really believe that a thriving downtown like Colorado Springs, where people want to live and property values are going up, should have a thriving downtown school district. I think that the academic master plan and facility master plan show that D11 is ready to take some chances and some risks. And I think that's really exciting. And I just want to see that that's done with teachers and schools being properly equipped and resourced to do so. So I'm excited about this, and I'm passionate about public education, and hoping for an opportunity to use my gifts where I feel my gifts and abilities intersect with the needs of this district.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. And I thank you for sharing about your experience and what brought you here as well. And last but not least, in the D11 candidates here, we have Julie Ott.
Thanks, Terry. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you all today. I see some familiar names, and I'm glad to see you. Julie Ott, I am running as an incumbent. I have been vice president for the last year and a half, and treasurer before that, having been elected in 2017. Since 2017, District 11 has made some great strides. Jen mentioned some of those, and Chris did. We have come up with a new strategic plan. We have the academic master plan, facilities master plan. We also have a new equity policy to set the district up for working for every child in this district. One of the things I ran on 4 years ago, and it's still accurate, is that our children have unique needs. We have to challenge them, have those high expectations, and support them in where they are challenged and have deficits. So it's an academic side and a social and emotional side as well to our kids. That's the whole child idea. And coming back to our strategic plan, we set up a new mission in the last 4 years. I was part of that. And that is that we dare to empower the whole child to profoundly impact our world. And I'm pretty passionate about that mission statement, and like Jen, passionate about public education. My own 2 students graduated from District 11. And so I've also served on the PTA and School Accountability Committee and seen that side of a school. They also were, this is a difference for some folks, we also had private education and for my kids at an early age. And so I've seen the upsides and the downsides of that. Charter schools as well. They aren't perfect like some folks think. They are not the answer. Public education is where it's at, and we need to support our education. I appreciated Dr. Kubik's slides today about education funding. Our districts across the state have a lot of challenges because of the lack of funding. But I think District 11 has really taken a hard look at where we've been, and we are poised for great success in the next few years. So I'm running to continue that work. One other note about my experience is I have volunteered for the last decade or 2 with League of Women Voters and working on nonpartisan democratic efforts, education, outreach to get out the vote. And public education and our civics education is really important. So I hope you'll all keep that in mind and educate your fellow voters, starting with just the reminder to go to the polls or vote that mail-in ballot on November 2nd. And I hope you'll vote for me. Thanks.
Wow, excellent. I think just one of the real quick things is how many openings are there for school board this go round? Somebody want to answer that one? That's an easy one.
I can put that out there. There are, in District 11, there are 3 4-year terms and there's 1 2-year term. And I love Jen and Chris. So I hope you vote for them as well as me. And I hope that we have a future board candidate here on the call as well. So.
Yeah. Well, excellent. All right. So anybody that might have a question that, let's do a question that would be all 3 candidates can do a real quick 1-minute answer, which is one of the toughest things to do. Anybody got something? Just go ahead and unmute yourself and say your name.
Oh, hello there. I'm Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
Hello there. Thank you all, first off, for even considering, and I know many of you have already been involved, but the time and effort that you put into this is definitely something that is appreciated. But I'm curious, as someone who works in D11, about the initiative I was on the STEM committee, but I would have been happy to be on the outdoor school committee, several different ideas that District 11 has put forth. So I'm just curious about that thought process of having more diversified magnet schools, if that is something that you as candidates are interested in.
Jen's first on the ballot. I think she should answer first.
I know Brenda too, so I'm happy to answer. Yeah, so I'm obviously going to have a different perspective as not yet being on the board. So I love the idea of a neighborhood school. That's one of the things I love about our school, is that we can walk to it, and it's community school. We moved here from Toledo, and Toledo Public Schools were on academic failure and emergency. And A lot of people in Ohio, they do the voucher system, and most people in our neighborhood did vouchers or moved out of district when it was time for their kids to go to school. But there were 2 magnet schools in Toledo that were a huge success with a long wait list, and those were magnet schools. I really do see that this is what parents seem to be looking for right now. A more customized education that meets the unique needs of the child. And I like the idea of, the outdoor educational learning, the performing arts, those kinds of schools. I think that it really could, D11 is looking to try some new things and take some chances and turn around this decline. I get why they're doing that. And I think it could be really successful if done well, right? And part of it is like, we don't have to start from scratch. There's some fantastic outdoor educational learning things happening in Doherty. Let's learn from that. There's a fantastic performing arts school in Denver. Let's learn from that. But also making sure that the schools are properly resourced and equipped for this. Sometimes it seems, as a parent and as someone who's friends with other D11 parents, sometimes it seems as though a school may say, we're this school, we're a STEAM school, or we're, and then you get there and it's like, people don't really know what this means, or, oh yeah, we did that for a while. And parents kind of feel shortchanged. Like, was this just a ploy to get me here? So what I've heard from teachers too is, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. Let's properly equip, resource, and plan, and build on what's already working to see this really take off and thrive, which I think that it can, especially, in outdoor education learning, I feel like it's such a natural fit for this area. So I am supportive of it. I just, I hope that it's done properly and timed out well, and that teachers get to be part of that collaborative process.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Now, Julie, you get to go next since you picked somebody.
Thanks. I'm 6th on the ballot, so vote for 6. So that makes sense. So yes, absolutely. I want to see that outdoor education program kick off. I have been jealous of School in the Woods in D20 for years. And why can't we have that for our kids? Why was I, as a parent, tempted to send my kids to D20 just for that program, when ideally we could have it here? We have great access to local parks. Howard, as you probably know, Brenda, Howard is right there at the edge of Garden of the Gods, and can step out and be at Rockledge Ranch just in a few moments. So they are, I think they've already emphasized outdoor learning there. And I think we need to continue to emphasize that option. For those who don't know, we also have a new online school for kindergarten through 8th grade kiddos, and that has just opened this fall, and that's Spark Online. And then we have a dual immersion language program called, well, I guess that's what we call it, at Rogers Elementary, that just opened for kindergarten and 1st grade students. And then that will grow into a middle school that's yet to be determined, and a high school yet to be determined, but probably Mitchell High School. And I'm excited about the possibilities and the options that we have. And we are looking at performing arts options and the STEM or STEAM, if you include the arts, as some of our options. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. And Chris, go for it.
Thanks, Terry. I am a big believer in magnet programs, and I'll caveat that with, and this is articulated in our academic master plan. It is critically important that we have great neighborhood schools, but we know, as I kind of mentioned in my introduction, a one-size-fits-all approach is not ideal for so many of our students. I myself am a graduate of a magnet program. I graduated from what was then the Center of International Studies out of Denver. So I very much appreciate the impact that can have, not just on the individual, but on the community itself. Magnet programs are great at mixing up zip codes, and I think that's a really important intangible benefit that we see. And it's great at reaching kids in a way that they otherwise might not be reached. That's not to say that our STEM program isn't going to teach history, but we know that if a student has a particular affinity for a particular type of learning, curving our curriculum to a way and a methodology that best reaches them is going to be ideal. So I think I'm certainly excited about where we see magnet programs articulated in the academic master plan. One of the things I'm most excited about is the concept of aligned pathways. So we don't have necessarily a STEM elementary school and it just kind of exists out there in the ether. And you know, after you get out of fifth grade, that's it. Figure something else out. That we will have a pathway that is elementary, middle, and high school that will kind of travel with the student throughout their experience. And I think that's really important. Another thing that I think is absolutely critically important as we're exploring these magnet programs, transportation has to be a guarantee within these programs. These are not places of equity unless we ensure access, and access is only the beginning. That's not the end of the equity discussion. That is the beginning of the equity discussion. But as D11 is articulating this academic master plan, one of the things that I will absolutely plant a flag on is that transportation is provided for our students should they be accepted into a magnet program, regardless of where their zip code might lie. We need to absolutely guarantee that there's transportation. So thanks.
Excellent answers, and I appreciate being a former science teacher and being the former principal of Rogers. Thanks for the dual immersion shout out. And then also my wife is a teacher at Howard and the kind of the beginnings of the outdoor school. These are all really important things for our families to be able to access. And I appreciate you know, the fact that we need to be able to get them from A to B as well. So good answers. I know this will be a recording as well for you to kind of go through as a candidate. Use this as an opportunity to kind of, oh, this is what, fine tune what you say as well. So do we have any other questions for you?
Yes, Terry, I have a question.
Go, Cindy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Kolp. I'm a new voter in D11 this year, although we've lived in Colorado Springs for many years, but just sold our home and downsized. And as you may know, housing prices have increased quite a bit in the D11 area, well, in the whole area. And perhaps that's a benefit in D11 because people cannot as easily escape and, go out further from town to school districts that they think are going to be better. And I just wanted to ask you if anyone knew how the increase in housing prices would affect the D11 program.
Yeah, anyone? Bueller? Go ahead, Julie.
I'll jump in. My understanding of the way that our mill levy works and our property taxes work, Cindy, is going to be that we'll just keep raising the same amount of money. So we will have to reduce our mills, if you will, reduce the amount we're taxing you to get the same amount of money. I see Chris nodding a little bit, so I hope that's accurate.
Yeah, that's actually pretty close. And I think there is between Gallagher and Tabor, yes, the valuation, taxing valuation will increase, but then really the amount that we can raise in D11 is going to be the same until we de-Tabor or
and
get
what
rid
about numbers of students? Do you think it'll affect enrollment?
That is always going to affect, and I know the numbers constantly are looked at for future budgeting as well. So any candidates want to talk about how we feel about attracting students from other places around us?
We'll take them.
Yeah, we'll take them. Exactly.
Chris, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think just briefly, that's certainly a big priority for D11. We know that there are more students in the geographic bounds of D11 than ever before. So it is obviously important, and that's one of the things that predicates our facilities and master plan and academic master plans is to make sure that we're providing a custom fit solution for any student that might be inside our boundaries, or should we be so lucky as to attract those outside our boundaries.
All right, well, I just got the 7 minutes just to give you a little bit of frame of time. So Julie, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, I just want to put out there too, District 11 will have a bond question this fall. It will be a no tax increase bond question. So we are busily paying off, being financially responsible, paying off our bonds that we have borrowed before. And then we hope if the question passes to buy some more bonds, fund some improvements in our schools, and the tax would remain essentially the same. So we are hopeful that you will all, for me, anyway, I'll speak for myself, the board passed it. So we as a group hope that you will vote yes on that question and support our schools. Again, funding is such a critical issue. Some of our kids are learning in schools that don't have air conditioning, and they won't feel good on a really hot day, and it's getting hotter later into September and hot in May. So it's really important that we get them into facilities that we can have a good education happening. And our staff too, they want to be comfortable so they can teach. It's important.
Yeah, they can't all wear shorts like I am on Zoom. So there, do you know what that issue or what the number is going to be on that one? Anyone?
I know the website is weared11.com or weared11.org, and one will take you to the other. And I want to say, well, I'll look it up and put it in the chat here, unless Chris or Jen knows. I should know.
Well, they should. Yeah, they will after this, right? They're all feverishly taking notes. Well, and I will tell you, as a former employee of District 11 for 31 years, one of the things that I felt over time is, yes, we were underfunded, but one of the things that lots of decisions that boards made over the years were smart decisions. They listened to the administrators, they listened to the forecast, they listened to things. And how do you expect to get feedback? I think your financial CFO is changing, right? So tell me how you make financial decisions in the future. 1 quick minute each, and then we're going to be going back to the other room. Jen first.
Me first again. Oh, I wanted to hear what the other ones said because they're currently on the board. And one thing I'm going to steal from Chris that as going to school board meetings, he is constantly talking about financial transparency. I think that's really important, and communicating that. And I mean, yeah, that the whole thing about collaboration that I was talking about, making sure that all of these decisions are done in collaboration, that you're building up a narrative, a coalition, a team, people feel on board with this, right? These ideas aren't coming from one person in one room in an office, but that these are things that have been talked about openly, discussed, feedback's been encouraged, people feel like they're a part of the decision. But probably the nuts and bolts of it, I'm sure the current board members might have a little bit more details on that, but I to steal from Chris's mantra, I think financial transparency is extremely important. And I think that the way that the mill levy was set up and the oversight committee on that is a good model for that.
Beautiful. Anybody else want to add to that? Chris, you got kudos for having your ideas stolen. That's good.
Sure. So, just to piggyback on that, anytime we as D11, as long as I've been a father in D11, have gone to the voters, we have tied that to an oversight committee. And D11 has even gone so far as to win awards for its financial transparency. So I think that makes an incredibly strong case for our use of funds, of taxpayer funds. And I think it's important that we always remember that these are granted to us by the taxpayers, especially in a community as fiscally minded as ours. Obviously, we want to be conscientious of that. And the more we do that, and I think we've seen that both in 2017 with the mill levy override, as well as in 2020 with the detabering initiative, as a result of our money management, of our fiscal transparency, the detabering initiative was supported by a 50-point margin. Like that is unheard of. That is tremendous support from the community. We certainly hope to see numbers similar to that, to the bond. And I think that speaks to our partnership with the community. And I think it's a great indicator that we're moving in the right direction.
All right, go ahead, Julie. I think you have a whole minute.
Oh, thank you. All right. I appreciate Chris mentioning the detabering that we've done. That allows the district to keep additional funds that come to us through grants and things like that. And District 11 is working on all of that. It's such an opportunity. The district continues from the mill levy override. Thank you, voters, for passing that, to the detabering question, and hopefully with this bond question to be financially transparent, as noted. They have a website on that. The oversight committees are doing their jobs. I like to sit in, as the former treasurer, I like to sit in on the budget subcommittee for the district accountability committee. I like to sit in on the mill levy override oversight committee and get their insight and hear their reasoning for the decisions they forward to the board. And we are always happy to listen to folks on their ideas on how we can make education better in our district. So thanks, Terry.
Absolutely. Well, and in that case, you got to share your answer with everybody. I didn't want to interrupt that. Thank you for the rest of you that joined us in mid-answer. We were just finishing up a financial question in D11. So I'm not sure where we go next. Oh, here we go. Ultra's got our slides up. I want to say a quick thank you to all of our presenters. Chris and Tim, thank you for just sparking conversations. Many of the questions we had in our room are related to things that you might have shared about. And thank you for the candidates and being willing to run. It is not an easy thing to do. It is so important though. And I appreciate all of you just putting your name out there, walking and sharing your ideas. This is what makes democracy work. And that is that education is going to be the basis for our future, and if we don't do that well, we're not going to do anything else well. All right, well, anything else that we need to add to the group? Awesome. And I know a recording of this will be posted tomorrow. I saw that in there. Also, candidates, Ultra was going to get you a copy of the slides as well, so that you can use some of the talking points or anything else, or just remind yourself what torture you went through. And then there's lots of things we can do to activate ourselves besides donating. And I think that is going to be, I think, Liz, are you supposed to be doing the ask here?
This is Ultra. Sorry, I'm going to jump in real quick.
Go ahead, Ultra.
So two things. One, thank you for everybody for coming. Candidates, yes, we'll have the slides available and just email them out to you guys on the emails that you sent us your bios from. So if that's not your normal one, please keep an eye out. I'll send you the link. It's a very large presentation, so it will be a link. Also, anybody who participated, it'll be on the EPC Dems webpage, probably sometime tomorrow morning. Feel free to go back, revisit it, share it with people. If somebody's talking about school district and they go, I don't even know what to think about, here's a link, tell them to go look. Those of us that were in the side breakout room with the smaller district, we also recorded that. So it will be a separate link, but that will also be available. And candidates, don't forget to go back and watch yourselves so you can see how you presented and answered questions, and keep an eye on other people too, just so you can build your own skill set as you continue this campaign process. So thanks for running, and we hope to see you all as winning candidates in the next couple months.
Excellent. So just to reiterate, time and dime. Every Saturday, you will have the opportunity to canvass for these amazing candidates, as well as in your own neighborhood. So if you can't make it on a Saturday, I am sure you know how to walk up and down your street. And these candidates would be more than happy to get you a walk list for you to get your neighbors out to vote for them and get them geared up. Please donate money to them. That $20 that you can give to all these candidates is going to be very well spent on our communities. And local elections are the most important things that we can do for ourselves that have a direct impact on what we do for each other. So thank you to all of these fantastic people who have taken on the call and the torch. So when they hear someone say, somebody better do something, they're like, I'm somebody and I'm gonna do it. Thank you for doing it. And we're here to support you. So everyone, thank you for tuning in tonight for Second Tuesday. Please donate to the El Paso County Democratic Party, like a regular $10 every single month. Donate to these candidates, donate to these initiatives. We also vote with our money. Have a great night.
Thanks, Liz.
And we are now free to sit and talk. If you have any other questions for candidates or anything, you are now welcome to do that. We will be turning off the recording.
Very cool.